So if you saw my last video, you might remember we yanked out quite a bit of old rotted out sill and floor joist sections, and it's kind of poetic, you know, that the very wood that supported this house for almost 68 years now is now being used to heat it.
Like the circle of life.
Exactly. Welcome back, everyone. Today's a special day. This is the 3rd anniversary of my closing date on this house. And I've done a video like this last year where I actually uploaded or copied the original video that I made of my first walkthrough, which was November 21st of 2018, after I had the keys in my hand. I'm not going to do that in this video. Rather, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over all of the things I've done this year, and I think that would be a great way to kick off this video. So, Oreo is now 2.5 years old. Him and his brother Tommy, and he has definitely imprinted on me. He won't leave me alone. He's very codependent on me sometimes. And I wish that he would spend more time with Amelia because, you know, he's just as much hers as he is mine. But that just hasn't taken place. Cats are funny little creatures. They pick who they want to be with, and it is using criteria that only they understand. But anyway. I'm glad he chose me, but I do wish that he would give a little bit of love and attention to Amelia as well. So this year, what have I accomplished? Well, we won't do this in order. This is our living room dining area, and it's one big room. I really loved, one of the things that drew me to this house was I actually bought the house even a little bit before Amelia and I started really dating seriously, and it was kind of funny how that worked out. I bought the house, and I'm like, hey, now that I'm in the area, why don't we spend more time together? And she just sort of moved in. So it's been great. I mean, you know, things have been going really well for us, and you know, so I think moving here made it a lot easier to facilitate a functioning relationship, because I was living about an hour away from where I'm standing right now. And honestly, though, yeah, buying this place was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. I got it for the right price, and then the market just took off. So there's some equity there that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Had I done things a little bit differently. But anyway, I just heard Christmas music playing from the basement. But anyway, so yeah, bought this house on the 21st of November 2018, and it has gone up significantly in value simply because of the tomfuckery that is the real estate market right now. But that could always go the other way. I got screwed when I bought my condo back in 2007, because when I bought it, it sunk by half of its original value, of its previous value, overnight. And I was upside down in that condo for about 12 years. And that is not a good place to be either. So I'm glad I'm not there now. And, you know, real estate purchases are very, you know, the financial sensibility of such purchases can really vary wildly based on when you bought it and when you sold it. But anyway, enough of that. What have I done this year? Well, in this living room, my most recent projects included replacing and rewiring 1, 2, 3, 4 outlets. That one I did back when I bought the place. The point of all that was to have grounded outlets in the living room, because this is where, you know, most of our electronics will end up being that being the television set. We've got a computer over there and a high-end radio over there, which that works, by the way, fully restored. But we're always plugging in things here, phone chargers, and to do that, we have to plug in surge protectors, which are all grounded, even though the end products are not grounded. Make any sense? But anyway, I just wanted to get all of these outlets rewired for functionality and safety purposes. There's one outlet over here that I can't do right now because it's actually wired up this way, and it comes off of the circuit that runs the fridge, attic lighting, and I think the second bedroom. So I didn't really do anything to the master bedroom because it didn't really need anything this year, but this is how it's laid out right now. My girlfriend has the other room as her dressing room, so I won't be showing that, but that's where she stores all of her, her entire wardrobe and shoes and stuff. So I never really film in that room because it's just all her stuff, all on shelves and things. So there's nothing really to see there. But yeah, this room, actually, this was the first room that I did anything at all to, because I needed a place to sleep. And in order to do that, I wanted to get this room. This was like the first room I resolved. I painted the walls. I regret the color choices I made because when I did accent walls, let me find a good angle to show you. When I did the accent walls, I picked too light of a color. So that's actually been on my list of things to do. I'm going to pick a darker, more contrasting color, and I'm going to redo the end walls. That wall and that wall right there. But otherwise, this room had when I moved in, I think it was the 21st of November, 2018. I came in here. I had to fix some plaster that had been damaged. I repainted the walls, and I replaced all the outlets and light switches. I then installed the ceiling fan. I replaced, this house had the original square glass dish type fixtures. I don't care how old or retro they are. I hate those things with a passion. And to make matters worse, the original glass dishes were blue. So those were taken down, like, immediately. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So I put in a ceiling fan here, but because that room is only used as like a changing room and where she keeps her makeup and all that, we didn't bother putting in a ceiling fan. So, this hallway, I think we repainted this last year. We actually did. We each picked out a color that we liked, and she picked out that plum color over there. And I picked out this blue color for over here, and then I used the blue on that wall. I thought it really, stand back here, it kind of, I think it contrasts pretty well with the gray paint that I put in the living room. So when I rewired these outlets, I rewired this outlet right here, which was originally completely switched with this three-way switch right here. There's one there, there's one over there. So what I did is I split the outlet in half. You can do that. There's two tabs you break off, and you can have two separate outlets, one switched and one constant power. So you'll notice that when I hit the switch right here, that surge protector remains on. That's how you do it. So let's work our way over towards the kitchen. So I think it was in the last year's video, it was either shortly before or shortly after, I really started getting into the retro theme of this kitchen. So when I found this 16-inch fluorescent circline fixture, I knew I had to have it. My coworker actually had it in his old house before he sold it. and he gave me the fixture. The new owners would have just taken it down and thrown it in the trash anyway, so it kind of worked out. So once I had the Circline fixture, I knew that I had to really go hard on the retro theme. So this summer actually, 2021, I tore up the original flooring, and I found that there was beautiful plywood underneath without any water damage, except for from about here to here. So that all got cut out, and I replaced it with new 3/4 inch plywood. Actually, I think I did 7/8 plywood. And I then put down some, not Luan, but it looks like Luan. It's actually it's purpose made for underlayment purposes. It's Sureply 1/4 inch plywood, and it's a finish grade material, and it goes down, well, finish in that it's a perfectly smooth surface. And that went down over top of the original plywood, and that is what you put your VCT or vinyl composite tile on. This is my second ever VCT floor install, and it so far is holding up nicely. I have had to replace a couple of tiles because I had some staples that were just a little bit proud of the surface. So I ripped up maybe 2 or 3 tiles. I think I did 4 tiles actually in this region here. What happened was, as I was stapling down the plywood, you staple it like every 6 inches, my air was going a little bit on the low side, and I didn't notice it until after I put the floor down. I'm like, what the hell? All these little staple pops. So I took care of that, and so far so good. And while I was fixing this, I went ahead and I rerouted the refrigerator ice maker line, water line, so that it no longer gets pinched when you roll the fridge back. I actually it's actually underneath and behind this cabinet right here. And it actually goes through the side of the cabinet in the back. So you can push it back in if you need less slack. It works out great. That came out nice. While I was there, I repaired this dishwasher opening. This is an ASCO dishwasher that I installed during the pandemic when you couldn't buy dishwashers anywhere. This was I don't know if I got this in the last video, but this replaced the Frigidaire that nearly caught fire. That was only 2 years old. And this was a really nice, really expensive dishwasher. I bought it as a leftover model. It was about 3 years old when I bought it. It had been sitting on the showroom floor in a crate. And so I paid almost half of its original price of $2,000. I bought it for less than $1,000. And it is a beautiful dishwasher. It runs great. Washes dishes that I never thought were washable. But I had to do some repairs to the opening this year when I had it taken out for the floor job. And I replaced a little bit of wood here. I replaced this style right here, as well as this one. They were both cut crooked. It looked like the original owner cut them with a handsaw. I know. I swear to God, he cut it with a handsaw. But based on what I could find for what was here for leftover from the years gone by, this house had a hot point dishwasher that was installed in the 1960s at some point, and it had been replaced 2 or 3 times over. Just recently, I repaired this drawer so that it actually closes properly. One of the things that you might notice, if you have a house that still has its original hand-built cabinetry, like this one does, they didn't have metal rails with wheels and rollers or plastic, though. They didn't do any of that. These drawers are they're just resting on wooden rails, and those wooden rails can wear down substantially over time, to the point where drawers will no longer they'll start opening themselves. Like you walk by a drawer and it just starts popping open. It's because the back side of that rail becomes a ramp, and the drawer will eventually fall down that ramp and pop open. So all the top drawers have had replacement rails put in. But I did that one this year. And again, I'm not sure if I did this. I think I did this after my 2-year update video last year, but I installed this faux tile backsplash. This is actually made out of PVC. It's a product that you can buy in any hardware store. It's a step above the self-adhesive vinyl backsplashes that are becoming popular these days. I see those in discount stores. This stuff isn't cheap. I think each sheet is about $25 or more. Maybe it was like $30. But each sheet, these are very expensive. Not as expensive as real tile, but I love the appearance of what I got here. This is very retro, and it worked well with this kitchen. And so far, I have no regrets about that. Easy to clean. You clean it with surface cleaner and a terry cloth, and it's flexible, so if something bumps into it, it won't crack it. And it's held up with construction adhesive, so removing it would be an absolute nightmare. But hopefully, it never comes to that. And it comes with these. Well, you have to buy these separately. These little edges. But I love the way it came out. That was something I did. I think I actually did that sometime in the winter of last year. Or last winter. So it would have been well after that 2-year update. But it made a huge impact as far as the appearance of this kitchen, and it just makes it look complete. This year, I took the Fasco fan apart, and I finally cleaned out the ductwork that goes from the fan all the way to the vent on the outside. Actually, it's right above there somewhere. What I noticed was, you would come home after a long day of work, and the house would smell like it would smell like old oil, cooking oil, and just nastiness. And what I found was the ductwork for that fan was so caked up with grease and oil from 67 years of use without a filter that it just got rancid. So I took the whole thing completely apart. I couldn't take the fan housing out because it's actually installed before they put in the ceiling, and it's nailed to the bottom of the rafters. So to get the fan housing or box out, you'd have to pull the ceiling apart, which I do not want to do that. But what I was able to do is remove all the ductwork, and I cleaned out the blower housing by hand using oven cleaner. So what I did is I brought the whole thing outside in one piece, the whole trunk, and I cleaned it with about 7 cans of Easy Off and water. And I got it down to shiny metal, and I put it right back in. And so far, that problem is no longer a problem. I then went and they actually sell round filters or grease filters for new tone style round ceiling fans, or exhaust fans like this one. So that's I think it's a 1 foot or maybe it's 11 and a half inch, I think, in diameter filter, and it fits right in that fan, right behind the grill like that. And what that's going to do is that's going to prevent any grease, or it'll reduce the amount of grease and oil getting up into the ductwork. How these filters work is that they're a cold surface, and grease wants to condense and congeal on cold surfaces. That's what it wants to do. So that just provides the first surface for it to condense onto, and that will pretty much prevent any further grease buildup inside the ductwork, and it'll extend the life of the fan even further. I forgot to mention when I did the floor, I also added this toe kick mold, or this, it's actually called a shoe molding, and I put that around the baseboard to hide the seams. When you're doing a VCT floor, this is really important. You have to have a nice gap between the edge of the tile and the wall or whatever it's up against, because these floors expand and contract with humidity and temperature. If you do not give it a little bit of room to grow and shrink, you're going to have tiles that are buckling and shifting. So what I had to do is I gave it a little bit of I think I did about a little less than a quarter of an inch all the way around, which I then hid with the the shoe molding. And of course you can't do that on these curved moldings. So I just I'm going to live with a little bit of tile buckle, maybe over time. Hasn't happened yet, so. Moving on. Here we are on the Breezeway. So this year's project was mostly electrical in nature. And I just did this actually about a month or two ago. So what I did is when this room was built, I determined that this was an original structure. This was not something that was added. When the house was built, they built the garage and they built this. In fact, every house in this neighborhood, every single house was built originally with a 1-car or a 2-car garage. This was 1954, and this neighborhood was built between 1948, I believe, and the last house of the original development was done probably in 1960 or so. So about a 10-year, 11-year span. But every house was built with a garage. So that tells me that this is... And most of them have breezeways in between. So with this room, again, it was all electrical work. I had to... let me backtrack a bit. So this room and the garage shared a line off. It was actually an offshoot of the kitchen circuit. So there was one outlet here, and that was a fully switched outlet. And there was one outlet. There was an outlet here too, come to think of it. I'm trying to remember if I put that in or not. No, there was one there too. And there was one outlet in the garage. So that was 3 outlets. And if you're running it off of the kitchen circuit, I guess the thought was, what are you going to do? Plug in a radio, a lamp? Anyway. So when I had rewired the garage 2 years ago or so, I ran 2 lines. I actually added 2 breakers. One for the breezeway, one for the garage. And I ran those, of course, out here. And I put the garage lighting on the breezeway circuit so that if the garage trips a breaker, the lights will remain on. That's a safety feature, by the way, and I think it is code that generally in a garage or a workshop, you don't want your lighting to be on the same circuit as the tools. Because if you do trip a breaker, you've now just created a safety hazard with no lighting. So that's why I did that. And the breezeway circuit only powered, again, this one outlet. That one was still on the kitchen circuit, and it was also switched. So here's what I did, and I did a video on this, but I rerouted that outlet source to here. So that switched circuit off the kitchen is now powering this light fixture, which is a ceiling fan, obviously. And I ran a line. I actually rerouted the wire going to this outlet. I routed it down into that wall, to that outlet, and then ran it back out to this outlet over here. And so now we have 2 outlets that are unswitched, that are on their own circuit for the breezeway. Now, later on, as I build out this room, because I'm going to eventually redo these glass walls here, because they don't do anything for weather protection. I'm going to add an exterior outlet on both sides, and those outlets will run off of the 15 amp Breezeway circuit. That guy. Make sense? Good. But that was something I did this year, so that's why it's in this video. I didn't do anything else here. I did maybe a little bit of paint touch-up and stuff, but that's all I did this year for this room. I haven't done any landscaping, obviously, just some cleanup. But that was all last year or the year before, and so was this. So one of the biggest projects I had to do this year, and it had to be done because I've been getting a lot of insect intrusion, weather intrusion, and just nasty stuff. But this window right here got replaced back in May of this year. Or shall I say removed and bricked over. This had to be done. Because that window was in the way. I'm going to eventually build a deck or something here. And I didn't want that window to be in front of a... I didn't want it getting blocked by wood or by by whatever we end up putting here, be it a patio or a deck. So that window, it just had to go, and it was the worst one in the house. It was completely rotted out. There was nothing left. I was able to pull the entire window frame out almost with my bare hands because there was nothing left to it. It was just pointless. So and it was also, the biggest factor in not replacing it with a window was the fact that it was an oddball size. And being an oddball size, I had to custom order a window. Now, because of the situation with the supply chain, I actually paid for a custom window that would fit there. And by the time July, late July, early August rolled around, I contacted Lowe's and I said, what's my time? I ordered it back in April, I believe. They said, yeah, I'm sorry, but you probably won't get it until late December or maybe even early January of 2022. So I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to cancel the order. I got my money back, and it wasn't cheap. And I went ahead and bought some bricks and some mortar, and this is the solution for that window. And nice and solid. It's not going anywhere. Wait till you see what I did on the inside. So, it doesn't look like a bricked over window on the inside. You'll see that in a minute. So, fortunately, the rest of the basement windows were all... Hey, buddy. I made a window seat, by the way, for the cats. All the other windows were the same size, and they were standard on-the-shelf size. These are like 18 by something. And, so that was luck. So they're all the same size, and they all could be from the same supplier. So these were something that I did this year. Let's take a look at one of them. So the way I put these in, I just knocked out the old window. These are anchored in with concrete screws, masonry screws on the bottom, or actually here and here. And they are screwed into, I used 1x6, I think, pressure treated, screwed into the sill of the house, and that's what's supporting the windows. They're sealed on all sides with foam, and then on the exterior I use caulking. This is a good quality caulking here. And at the bottoms, because there's such a big gap, I use mortar. So I mortar them in on the bottoms, but they're sealed with foam on all sides so that nothing gets in, nothing gets out. And for the first time in many years, this house has functioning basement windows. Same thing over here. Now this mortar, I'm not a big fan of this stuff. It does shrink. These cracks form shortly after this dried, but it's not really a problem. I might put some masonry sealer over it just to protect it, but that's what repair mortar does. It can shrink, and it will crack, but it shouldn't get any worse than that. Haven't really done anything with the landscaping this year. It's been pretty much... Landscaping was more of a last year thing, or the year before. I think I locked myself out. Damn it. This is where we keep the trash barrels, and my girlfriend put this in. I came home from work and this thing showed up. Oh, I'm like, that's a nice idea. Her roses are actually doing pretty well. That was something that my girlfriend and her mom did. They did that right around during the pandemic, I think. They were both working from home. This is what working from home looks like. There's a back view of the house. Oh, let's talk about another thing I did. I didn't do this. I hired someone to do this. This was something I did right at the tail end of the spring season. I actually hired a mason to come over and replace the flue on the furnace side. That's the one to the left. The other one is the original terracotta or clay liner for the fireplace. And he said that the fireplace flue was really good. No reason to do anything with it. But what he did is he smashed out the original terracotta liner for the furnace and he put in that steel pipe, stainless steel pipe. And the full cap over there. The full cap, and put that in place. And you know you've got a good mason when they don't try to sell you stuff you don't need. Yeah, he actually said your chimney's actually in really, really good shape. There's no reason to do anything else to it. But the furnace flue was completely destroyed. So he just, I don't think he smashed it out. I think he left it there. He just sleeved down the stainless steel flue pipe, and that was all he had to do. And I'll show you the work he did on the inside. But that also falls into this year's house repair list. And Oreo is destroying his taco truck. Little word to the wise, if you buy one of these for your cat, buy one of these for your cat, they will destroy it within the first week. So what I had to do is I had to actually hot glue all the seams together after they tore it to shreds. I had to hot glue all the seams. And on the inside, so what Oreo's getting pretty heavy. He's starting to gain a lot of weight. And what he was doing is he was jumping from the freezer on top of this thing to scare his brother, who was inside. And he just kept doing it. And it just crushed the whole thing down. So I had to Oreo-proof it with a wooden structure on the inside. And that is the only reason this thing is still intact. So I think I bought this back in June. And this has already been destroyed once, but he'll have a hard time destroying it again. He's just going to eat away at the cardboard. But that's okay, because having these things around your house protects everything else you own. That's kind of the way it goes. But it was the best $40 I ever spent, or $30. I forget what it cost. I got that at Target. But every once in a while I got a vacuum in here because there's little cardboard chunks all over the place. Right, Oreo? That reminds me, another thing I fixed was this door. This door had to be taken off its hinges, and I had to shave off the bottom of the door about that much. So once I did that, the door now works flawlessly. So that brings us down to the basement, where most of the work was done. All the wiring had to be done from under here. But one of the biggest projects I did this year is one of the ones that I dreaded the most, and it was the most recent one I did, and it was restructuring this whole section of the house. I had to splice brand new wood into this tripled up floor joist. This was completely rotted out from all the water damage that we fixed 2 years or a year and a half ago. Above that, this is where the front door is, by the way. So all of this had to be completely redone. Well, by that I mean repaired. But so far, so good. This is holding up really nicely. I know this doesn't look straight, but it is. It's completely plumb on the other side. It's just that the way the wood was cut, it's not, perfectly cut. But I assure you it is completely straight, and there's no, tomfoolery going on up there. It just looks bad, but it's strong, I assure you. So this was so anyway, this is all solid now. I replaced the ends of the sill so that those beams are now resting on something solid. Now, I'm not done with that, honestly. I'm not going to do this anytime soon, but I've decided I'm going to cut out more of this sill later on because the damage was a little bit more than I was hoping for. But the existing material is still solid enough. I mean, it's holding the house up pretty well, but I feel that it is my job to just do what I can to replace anything that's even remotely damaged. So what I'm going to have to do is, not in the near future, but maybe in a couple years, I'm going to have to jack up these. I'm going to probably go back about this far, maybe right to that seam. That's a good place to start, right there, right where that joint is. And we're going to cut all that out and replace it. And I'm going to do that on the other side as well. I just feel like that is the best way to do this, because, like I said, there was more rot than I had anticipated. But it's not like the house is structurally unsound. It's just, it would be best practice to replace more of that sill on either side. And the reason that I am not too concerned about it is because we've stopped the damage. We stopped the water intrusion. We stopped the insect infestation, which I will continually work on by putting ant baits on the exterior perimeter of the house. And the taro ant baits that kill the entire colony, those work really well. So we're going to use those. But again, it's more of an OCD thing than being at a structural need at this point. But I'm fairly confident that at this stage the house is solid, and I don't have to worry anymore about somebody going through the floor. Not sure if I caught this in the second year update, but put it in the third year update anyway. I got that concrete sink that was sitting over there, standing up on end. My ex-brother-in-law helped me put it back in place, and I fixed the crack that was in it, and I replumbed the faucet. I replumbed the washing machine, so we have a proper non-leaking washing machine plumbing supply. We'll get into that next. But anyway, this is all done. I'm fairly certain I did this back in December of last year. I think that sounds about December or maybe even January when I did this, when I put this sink in. But this was not in the previous update video. That reminds me, what else have I done since then? Okay, so I also painted these walls all around. In the last video I made, I think they were still black, but now they're bright white, except for that one because it's a slop sink and I made a mess. But I also drywalled this basement office space, the exterior, the outside of the walls. They were left bare studded. when I bought the place, and I have since drywalled them. The drywall I got for free. My coworker who gave me the light fixture also had all this drywall sitting in his garage, so I took it and I applied a mold retardant primer, and I added the mold armor stuff to the top coat as well to reduce the likelihood of any mold growth. But it is the wrong plywood for the job. It is not the green board. It is standard old-fashioned. I think this is like half-inch plywood drywall. And yeah, so this is all done. Also took care of repainting the stairs using a nice what did I use? I used a bonding primer, and then I put this stuff on. And I painted it with this color here, and so far so good. So that was all stuff that I've done since the last full update. It's been a very busy 3 years, a very expensive 3 years, but it's well worth it. I took this house, which was really falling apart and neglected, and turned it into something nicer. And oh yes, this is the inside of that brick wall, or that bricked over window. I used some leftover, I didn't buy this for this project, I had some leftover material, and I finally found a use for it from the kitchen backsplash. And this became the background. Now behind that, just so you understand, this is not just on brick. So there is 1 inch of foam insulation behind that, cut to size. Behind that, there is a membrane layer, what you call bitchethane, or you might know it as Grace Ice and Water Shield. That is stuck to the brick, but even further, directly on the back side of that brick are 3 coats of masonry sealer. The same stuff that you use on chimney crowns. Ain't nothing coming through. It should be, it's kind of chilly out right now, and this space is warm. Absolutely room temperature. It's like, it's not drafty or cold. It's nice and warm. And now that we have thermopane windows in the basement, it's nice and warm in here too. So all of these improvements will definitely help reduce the heating expenses for this home overall. Right? Every little bit helps, and most definitely, every little bit helps. So we should be on track to burning less oil than we have in all of each 3 years this year. I think that our oil bill is going to be much more reduced than it ever has been. Thus far, we've burned a little bit of oil. I started heating the house in late September, and ever since then, so this oil tank was completely full. Now, the full mark is technically right about here, but there's a little bit of space at the tippy top of the tank, so it's actually like about here. So we've burned that much oil in 2 months. It's not terrible. Now again, we're not in the deep winter weather coldness yet, but that's a good sign, because I believe last year I burned way more than that by this time. So yeah. Now the insulation of the floor may or may not have been in the last video, but in case it hasn't been, I did this, I think it was last December. So last December, I did a lot of work down here. Just come to think of it, last December was probably my busiest month. I insulated the floors, I put in the sink, I drywalled that whole room on the outside and trimmed it and painted it. I painted the walls. Last year was quite busy for me. And we kind of reorganized. That's where that section of the basement is where Amelia has all of her crafts and stuff. And she's working on organizing it right now. So hopefully that'll get done soon. But I encouraged her to get some more bins, and she can organize all this stuff. If we even need to get more shelving, we can do that too. But down the road, my plan is to wall this off so that she can have her own little space like I do over here. And what I would do is the walls would go from here, and the corner would be right about here, like that, and then the door would be right here. And that would be her space, and the rest of it would be my space for, all the construction projects I do. But, so we covered electrical. The last and final thing I want to talk about that I've done this past year, and this was all very recent, is I went through and I shut down the water supply and I started replacing valves like crazy. All of the shut-off valves, all these they're actually isolation valves, all of these got replaced. Every one of them. The ones behind the shower wall, those got done. Every shut-off valve in the house was leaking. Every one. That one got done. There was a shut-off valve right here. But what I did, because there was a shut-off valve right here, but it was actually redundant because we already have shut-off valves for the toilet and the sink hot and cold line. There's no need to have a valve right there. So that got eliminated. And I added shut-off valves over here for the sink plumbing that was redone. And guess what? None of them leak. So that was one of the things during the inspection report that was brought up, like all of your shut-off valves are seeping. So it wasn't like a drip leak, water was seeping through and forming corrosion around the valve. And that's how you know you've got a a leak that is so slow that it evaporates before it drips. But every shut-off valve in the house had to be replaced. Or isolation valve, shut-off valve. They're used for isolating circuits in the water system for repairs. So if I wanted to replace this faucet, all I would do is just shut these guys off and I can do my work without shutting down the whole house. If I want to replace the bathroom, the bathtub shower valve, I can just close off those two valves upstairs and I can do my work without shutting down the whole house. If you want to replace a toilet or a faucet, you just shut off those valves that are necessary, and you've got yourself a working situation. While we're on the subject of lighting, I know I'm jumping around. I went and bought up all the 16-inch Circline bulbs I could find at my local hardware store. I bought the whole case. They were on clearance. Now, if I didn't buy these probably would have been scrapped because there aren't very many 16-inch Circline fixtures left in existence. They didn't really sell that many of them, I don't think. I mean, most of them are 12 and 8s. But I also bought up all the 12s and 8s because I have another Circline fixture above the basement staircase. So I bought up all the 12s and the 8 inches. And I bought up as many of these 18-inch kitchen and bath bulbs that I could find. I bought all of them. And the funny thing is, I have the two bulbs that I installed the day I moved into this house are still going strong. So, and that's 3 years. So if you figure there's like a 4 or 5 year lifespan, that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. I've got about 30 years worth of bulbs here. That's a good long time. I'm not even sure I'm going to still have this house in 30 years. But if I do, I won't have to worry about bulbs. And, oh yeah, okay, this is the last thing. So this faucet, I replaced the faucet that came with the house and I bought this. This is a pull-type faucet. I love this faucet. It's beautiful. It's made by Kohler, I believe. And it is a nice, solid faucet. as a sprayer. But remember, we were replacing valves. I'll show you what I mean. So down here, we also had leaky valves. We had an old, the shutoff valve for the dishwasher was one of those, I forget what it was called, but it was the gray plastic polystyrene or poly something. Anyway, it had one of those gray plastic valves mounted off a pipe that was shooting out this way and actually held to this with a piece of string. Yeah, that all had to go. So when I took that old valve off, I discovered to my horror that it was probably maybe a year or two away from just letting loose. And that was horrifying. If you have any gray plastic plumbing in your home, I don't recall, it's poly something. Look, if you have gray plastic plumbing or shut-off valves or anything at all, gray plastic, remove it. Because I'm telling you right now, if I had not done that, it was, honest to God, it was threaded onto a copper threaded fitting, and it was cracked all the way down to like the last couple of threads. Don't even tempt your fate with those things, because if that thing had let go, it would have flooded and destroyed this kitchen. And if you have particle board cabinetry in your house, like most people do, these are pine, but that particle board cabinetry can't stand a chance to even the slightest amount of water. So you'd be out the cost of your cabinetry and your plumbing and whatever damage is done to the flooring. So all of this got redone. This is all my handiwork. Feel free to judge. I don't care. But we got a new shutoff valve here for the dishwasher, 2 new isolation valves for the faucet, and so far so good. And this block of wood, I had to find a way to support this pipe. See, most plumbing is actually going to be coming through the walls, but on this house it comes through the floor. So I had to come up with a way to support all of that plumbing. So I took that block of wood right there and I toe screwed it in place, and it's not going anywhere. I also painted and sanded it too, just because. But there you go. Just in case I didn't put this in the other video, we added a light fixture to the dining room, and so what I did was I took this light switch, which only served the closet light, and I added another switch to it and ran another wire up to that fixture, which I added, and now we have a dining room light. While I was there, I redid the inside of this closet so that it has shelving built in for all of our cleaning supplies, and there's an outlet down there, which
There is?
Yes. That outlet is for the vacuum cleaner, which is one of these little Dyson jobs.
How come I didn't know that?
Because you never asked. So that pretty much covers all the work I did in 1 year. And I'm just reeling from all the expense that ended up costing me. I just can't believe it. I'm just thinking about it now. I'm like, oh my God, I have probably spent $10,000 in materials. No, not that much. I'd say a couple grand to do all the stuff I did this year. And I think about it now. I mean, if I did absolutely nothing to this house, well, I wouldn't have been able to do that because I had major plumbing issues just off the gate. The first day here, actually the second day, November 22nd, 2018, the sewer line backed up. That was day 2. And I had to hire a roto-rooter to come in and take care of it. And we haven't had a problem since. Knock on wood. Haven't had a problem since. But yeah, this house was not even livable. Really, it wasn't. But had I done nothing at all, The original furnace would have died probably by now. Probably would have created a very dangerous situation with the firebox crumbling. We would have water leaks. The roof had to be done immediately. So if I hadn't done the roof, we would have major water damage in this house by now. I mean, just the list goes on. But this house could not have been lived in for much longer after that. So I got lucky. I was in a situation where I can do the work myself. You know, that's the thing is, all of this stuff has been possible because I did almost all of it myself. The only jobs that got hired out were the chimney, the roof, and the furnace replacement. Those are the only 3 jobs I hired out. And even that was expensive. The chimney repairs cost me just shy of $2,000. The woman across the street, she hired somebody to do the same job, basically. And they charged her... oh, wait, you know what? I'm just noticing that they rebuilt the top of her chimney. Look at that. They rebuilt the whole top of her chimney. That cost her $8,000. Buying a house is no joke, because seriously, that is the kind of job that the city will not let you do yourself, and that was $8,000 to have that rebuilt. That's what she told me, which is insane. But that's a roof that can cost, depending on the complexity and the size. I mean, that can be $20,000. For me, it cost me, I got a discounted price. He quoted me, he said $13,000 if it were anybody else, but because you're a family, he charged me, I think he charged me 9.5 or maybe just shy of 10 to have the roof done. And, so if you're struggling financially and you think that buying a house is the right move to make, probably don't jump into it so quickly. Do your research and watch as many YouTube videos as you possibly can to learn how to do things yourself, because there's no way in hell I could have paid for all of this work to be done had I not been able to do it on my own. It just couldn't happen. There's just no way. I mean, just having a faucet replaced by a professional can cost you $500. I mean, I'm just pulling numbers out of the air, but I do believe that if there's like anything beyond just putting in a faucet, now you're paying for them to replace valves or plumbing or this or that. In this case, it would have been a couple $100, literally, just to have the faucet replaced, plus the cost of the faucet. To have any wiring done can cost you, the sky is the limit. So learning how to do things yourself is definitely the way to go, especially if you're not rich like me. I'm not rich at all. I work a normal middle-class job, and I'm not rolling in cash, so the only way that I could have done this is if I did it myself, period. And that's the key.